Hey there, Tom here from the Run Testers. In this video we are going to be reviewing the Tracksmith Eliot Racer. Let's have a look. The Tracksmith Eliot Racer costs £275 or $280. It weighs 215 grams or 7.6 ounces for men in an 8.5 and the drop is 7.5 millimeters. The Eliot Racer is the first carbon plate race shoe from the popular running apparel brand. Aside from its sleek design, the shoe combines a carbon plate with a cushioned drop-in midsole made from a supercritical foam to produce a high level of energy return. The shoe also features an aggressive rocker shape for an efficient toe-off, a generous rubber outsole for grip and durability, and silicone skin laces to ensure a secure fit when racing.
Comes to the fit of the Tracksmith Eliot Racer. I've actually got a UK 9.5 here, which is half a size up on my normal UK size. That is a US 10 though, which is a size I often use with some brands. I'd say it is definitely a shoe that fits a bit small. I'd look at going half a size up. For a US 10, this is a lot more dialed in than the other US 10s that I've tried from other brands. And obviously it's half a size up on my normal UK size and I have a good fit. So that is something to look out for. Certainly the fit of the shoe in terms of the length. Otherwise though, the fit's really good. It's a very comfortable shoe. It's got a nice bit of padding at the back there just to cradle the Achilles. Tongue has a little bit of padding on it as well, so it's not as stripped back and racy as lots of the super shoe uppers out there, which does give you an element of comfort for longer runs and daily training even. And no heel slippage or anything like that. The only thing I'd look out for of the fit is the length, and it's one that I think comes up a little bit short.
Fit then, and this is a wider fit than your regular race hugging race day sort of carbon race shoes that you get. It's definitely roomy up the front, perhaps even a little bit loose, but that is good if you're long hauling. I wouldn't describe it as the most natural. I've had to work a bit to get everything sitting comfortably each time I've laced them in, and the laces do sort of tighten down, which meant I was constantly having to re-loosen them, lower down the lace carriage each time I put the shoe on, so I had to redo the whole process again. Massively lazy when it comes to that kind of thing. I did find that a little bit irritating. Having said that, the heels hold well, the midfoot did secure really well once I was done faffing, and on the move I've had no major issues with the fit of this shoe, and overall I would recommend going true to size.
Fit wise, I think the Tracksmith Eliot Racer is a little bit on the smaller end, but true just about to size. So I have a size 7 normally, and I run in a size 7 in these as well, but they were kind of slightly on the shorter end. However, they've got a nice roomy toe box, and everything else about the fit was perfect for the size 7. So it would only be, I'd say, if you're on kind of the top end of your size that you might want to size up a bit. It was really nice to have that wide roomy toe box, I think, compared to some other racers that can be a bit particularly narrow. I found they locked in really well, just one lace up and they were absolutely fine. And then I think in general they've got a lot more structure than most race shoes, so a lot more structure around the heel and just generally kind of thicker than most race shoes. They look fantastic to start with, and then you get sticky gel all over them when you do a race in them. So but yeah, generally true to size, on the slightly smaller end of the spectrum, but not so that you would particularly need to size up on them, and the tongue and everything and the structure of it all feel great.
So I'm a size 8 usually in the UK, and I've gone for the 8.5 because I was told that it does run a little bit short, and I'm glad I did because this fits perfectly for me. There's plenty of space in the forefoot, the right amount of space that I need for my big toe. It's actually quite roomy around the forefoot as well. It's quite a comfortable fit all over the shoe. It's a very comfortable shoe, to be honest, where race shoes are concerned. Midfoot's absolutely fine, and there's a nice bit of padding around the back as well, and the tongue has a pretty nice bit of padding on it as well. It's pretty lean, but it's a very nicely fitting one, a very comfortable all-round shoe, but equally I found it very easy to get a nice lockdown fit in. So I would definitely go up half a size in this shoe based on the fact that the half a size up from what I would normally go for is absolutely perfect for me.
Now in testing, I've definitely not run as many miles as some of the team here. This shoe landed for me around kind of London Marathon, so I just got a few miles in before and a few miles after. I've had to squeeze in the miles basically to test this, but I have mixed up the paces and I've got a good sense of the shoe from the miles that I've logged. Now before we get into the ride, I wanted to start with the aesthetics and the design. Tracksmith makes beautiful things and I love the vintage inspired look of this shoe. It feels very different to all the other carbon racers out there. It's definitely a looker. I did one test run in this on the way back from my son's school open day, and I wore these with jeans at the open day, and they fitted right in with the other dad trainers in the room. So that's a big thumbs up. You can get away with wearing them. You wouldn't get away with wearing the Metaspeed Sky Paris necessarily. Now, the idea here to pair this kind of ATPU super foam removable sock liner with a PBA bottom layer of foam, I think, is also an interesting move. We've seen a bit of this kind of dual setup from shoes like the Innovate or On and a few other brands, and this combo definitely delivers a good level of bounce and energy from a ride that's still soft and protective, but I found perhaps at times it was bordering on the spongy. I didn't get the smooth rocket punch or that kind of fired up race energy that you get from the biggest hitting carbon racers. Everything was cushy and cruisy, but I didn't get that all-out sort of guns blazing feel, the aggressiveness that I really want from a full-on carbon race shoe. I think some of the Eliot Racer's fire may be dampened by the weight of the shoe. It's not hugely heavy, but it does feel much heavier than your out-and-out carbon race shoes. And some of the shoes that we've seen sort of battling for that ultimate kind of lightness, the Puma Fast Star, the Nike Vaporfly 4, all of these are getting lighter and lighter. Part of that, I think, is down to the uppers that haven't gone full minimal. There's definitely more structure here than you get from a lot of super shoes. A lot more reinforcement in the toe box, all of that kind of stuff. Now, I've really got this because of that in super trainer territory more than a race shoe. On the flip side of that, what you've got here is a shoe that definitely offers more sort of trad shoe comfort than you'll get from some carbon race. You've got big padded heel collars here when you compare them to your regular carbon race shoes, and there's more to the tongues as well. All of that is there's a bit more going on. It does feel more super trainer. Now, I also did some miles in 20 plus degree heat, that's Celsius obviously, and the thicker uppers aren't as light and breathable as I'd really like. Even with thin socks, my feet got a little bit warmer in these shoes. I think because of this sort of toe wrap and the structure back, the breathable kind of upper bits are sort of mainly across the top of the toe box. So that's also another consideration.
I'd done mainly easy running and then one hilly half marathon race in these on a very warm day. When I did the easy running with them and the first run I did with them, I thought, nice shoe, enjoyable, comfortable, but I don't really feel like a super shoe. I don't really get what's going on here. I don't get any kind of return, particularly any difference to the original Eliot, which was a perfectly good sort of Pegasus style shoe for everyday running. But actually, once I raced in them, I could kind of feel it more. And that's when things like the removable insole that they've got, which is supercritical foam, is really nice and soft. It gives you a little bit more return, again, a bit more comfort as well as a bit of bounce from that insole. And also, I mean, they've got a 7.8mm drop on them. So they've got a decent drop, 7.5, sorry. But they don't feel super aggressive. But that kind of fits with what Tracksmith have said. They've said it's an understated silhouette and the racer lets your time do the talking. So they're sort of trying to say, look, we're not being showy here, although they do have a golden cream shoe. But we're not making it look crazy. Maybe looking at you, Puma Fast Star. We are just making a shoe that looks pretty normal but actually performs on race day. And I think that is true for this. So if you wanted a shoe where you're not going to step into it and think, oh, this feels odd, you don't want that kind of like race day frisson. You want something where you step into it and you think, this has got some good oomph, but I don't feel crazy wearing this. Then that's what this shoe does. I think it's one of these shoes where the faster you run in it, the faster you want to run. So it really comes into its own as you click over. So I really noticed kind of once I got into the racing, that's when I was feeling like they were propelling me forward. And again, it doesn't feel a high stack, but it is 38mm. So it's right up there with the kind of nearly as high as you can go. The one thing I would say actually is that when I've run in kind of other high stack shoes, your kind of Adidas Pro 4s, that sort of thing, they feel a lot less stable. This shoe is lovely and stable, really nice and stable for running in. And also, running up hills, I find more tricky in those, particularly the heel striker, because I feel just like there's so much shoe to kind of hit the heel against the hill. And actually, that's where the Tracksmith shoe came into its own. It doesn't feel like a lot of shoe. It doesn't look like a lot of shoe either, to be honest, even though it does have that stack. And so when you're running up hills, it doesn't feel like it's resisting you. It still feels like it's a race shoe when you're going up hills. So I think it really came into its own there. It's got nice little touches like these silicone back laces, although I still had to do a double knot. They came undone once on a little easy run, so I wasn't about to risk it on a race. And I would say I ran on a particularly hot day and I didn't find them very breathable. They do have this kind of mesh upper, but it's not as lightweight as a lot of those other race shoes out there. It feels much more, again, like a normal shoe. The tongue is like at least 2 layers. It's got a proper heel counter and kind of, good solid bit around the ankle. So it's a shoe that will look after your feet. It's not a shoe that's going to wreck you. It's not a shoe that's going to roll your ankle. It's a shoe that's going to give you a nice bunch of energy return. It's going to keep you pop, 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 and not feel crazy. But it is not, I don't think, up there with those big, massive racers. And that is where you come to a problem because of the price. We'll come on to that.
So Tracksmith is a clothing brand that has one shoe so far, the Eliot Runner. I haven't tried that. I know the other guys have tried that shoe out. This is the first time I've tried a Tracksmith shoe. And I was, to be honest, I wasn't expecting a lot from it because it's that, there's lots of brands out there that are producing shoes for a very long time. Normally when you see a brand produce a carbon plate shoe for the first time, they still have a lot of learning to do. So I've done about 50k in this shoe so far, and that has varied. I've done a couple of easy runs in it, I've raced in it, and I've done an interval session in it. And on the whole, I've been pretty pleased with it. I think that what I expected from this shoe, it was going to be largely a shoe designed for fashion. And the main question mark I had over my head when I was testing it was, is it really comparable with a lot of the carbon plate racers out there? Because it's a very expensive shoe, and if you're going to be spending the money on this shoe, are you getting something that's equivalent to the top shoes out there, or is it a shoe that is maybe more designed for fashion and it has some sort of performance elements in? So in testing, what I found is that it's definitely a carbon plate race shoe. It's a fast shoe. It's got some good elements to it. It's definitely quick off the mark. You can pick up the pace quite nicely in it. And when I raced in it, I did the Haywards Heath 10 mile, which is a sort of mainly road race. And I enjoyed it for that. It did the job. I felt like it was pretty quick. I felt like it could maintain a nice, consistent pace. And I think it is a all right carbon plate race shoe. Especially because I wasn't really sure. I wasn't really expecting a lot from it. I was expecting to be a little bit disappointed by it, to be honest, because it's a shoe that is sort of the first carbon plate shoe from Tracksmith. But I do think it's a solid all-round carbon plate shoe. I think that it definitely feels like a shoe that you can pick up the pace nicely in. The 10 miles that I did in it felt very good. What I would say about it though is that in comparison to a lot of the other carbon plate shoes out there, some of the high performance ones, the ones that we say are really good, things like the Hoka CLO X1 2.0, things like the Alpha Fly 3, it lacks some of the benefits that you get from those shoes. So whether it's the bounce from, or the energy return from the midsole, whether it's the carbon plate giving you that really aggressive toe off, it's a more subtle, natural feeling carbon plate shoe. I didn't get a lot. I didn't feel like it was doing loads on that run. It doesn't feel aggressive. It doesn't feel like it's forcing my foot to do into a position that is making it go really fast. And that's not necessarily a bad thing at all. Some people probably really like that sort of ride as opposed to the more aggressive carbon plate shoes that you can get. Also the midsole, it's a bit of a funny midsole because it sits inside the shoe. You can actually take the midsole out and the carbon plate sits at the bottom of the shoe, so it's quite a low sitting carbon plate, and the actual softness from the midsole comes from that insole, which doesn't, it's absolutely fine, but I think because the carbon plate sits quite low, it doesn't have a really noticeable impact on the ride. It definitely, it's there, but it doesn't feel like it's really springing you forward like you do get in some shoes. So it's definitely a more subtle ride. It's a more natural ride, but it's a fast shoe. It's definitely a really, really nice fast shoe, and for some people they would really, really like this. So across that testing and in the race, I found it to be solid all-round carbon plate racer. I just don't think it's up there with some of the top tier ones at the moment, just because the benefits of it are sort of minimal in comparison to what you get into a lot of shoes out there at the moment. So apart from that, the outsole, really, really good. Really like the outsole on this. So while I was running, it was mainly road, but there was a lot of gravel paths, muddy little dry paths and things like that. There's a really thick layer of rubber on the outsole of this, and I have a major problem with carbon plate shoes, and I rip the rubber off quite a lot because they tend to have really thin layers of rubber on. But this is great. This is really thick, and the reason why I picked it for that race is that I knew it was slightly multi-terrain. I didn't want to use one of my other shoes for it because I knew I would have ripped the bottom off on gravel paths. This was absolutely fine. Did a great job. Really good outsole, nice and grippy as well.
So I've run about 75k in the Tracksmith Eliot Racer, using it for a mix of training runs ahead of the London Marathon recently. I've taken it to the track, I've done some harder road sessions, and then quite a lot of more general training as well. So some easy to steady progression runs and even some flat out easy runs. And I think that is the strength of this shoe when you're looking at it compared to maybe some other super shoes. It is a very approachable one that you can pull on almost every day. It's got quite a stable ride, quite an accommodating ride, a comfortable upper, as I've mentioned, and I think it all works out as a shoe that you can use a lot for a mix of fast and even quite slow runs. So that does give it some appeal at a time when lots of super shoes are going for very wild designs that really aren't suitable for lots of general use. This is one that I think you could reach for quite a lot, but it is also a weakness to the shoe, I'd say, in that it lacks the top end performance you are getting from some of the best super shoes out there right now. This is not one that I'd reach for ahead of lots of other shoes just in terms of trying to run my fastest race. I don't think it quite has the same level of punch and efficiency gains that you are getting from some other shoes, and overall a lot of the time probably felt more to me like a really good super trainer rather than a really good super shoe. I think that was really noticeable to me if I was using it for kind of sustained hard runs. Like I did a 5k marathon pace in the shoe, but anything where I was trying to hold a k pace for a longer spell, it just felt like you don't really get the big efficiency boost that you get from other super shoes. Like it's not got a very pronounced rocker, and you don't necessarily feel like you're getting that extra punch, just keep rolling on and hold a fast pace in the shoe. Like I liked it a lot for like shorter intervals. When I went down the track, I think I was doing something like 60 seconds on, 30 seconds off, and just kind of rolling through those faster speeds, then having those recoveries quite quickly. I think it works well for that. It's reasonably light. They're not very light for a super shoe, and it gives you a bit of spark. But like I say, when it comes to holding fast paces was where these carbon plate shoes I think really come into play. Boosting your efficiency, making it feel easier to hold those fast paces for longer periods. I don't think this is where the Eliot Racer excels. Like it does it fine, but it just doesn't do it as well as the best super shoes that are out there now. And that's probably the dominant thing I've taken away from my run test. Like I liked running in the shoe. I picked it up, I used it a lot. I think it is a good shoe that will appeal to lots of people, and maybe it'll be a bit more approachable than some of the really aggressive super shoes out there. So if you're not necessarily running like sub 3 marathons, you might look at this as a slightly better option for race day, because I do think it is a bit more stable and supportive than some of the crazier carbon shoes out there. But just purely on performance, I just don't think it hits the height of some of the shoes on the market right now.
And so the verdict, this is not a cheap shoe. It's a pretty looking shoe, but it's not cheap. It's up there with the most expensive racing shoes out there. And if you're going for a PB, this is not gonna get you as many seconds, I don't think, for most people. But if you want a shoe that is going to be a lot more durable, the outsole on it is much, much more durable. The whole thing is designed to be much more durable. It's not a 3 races and you're done and chuck it in your wardrobe because half the outsole's fallen out or anything like that. Maybe Tom will even manage to keep the rear of the outsole on, who knows. If you want that kind of ratio, a ratio that you can use again and again and again and again, I mean, in theory, you could even replace the insoles, I guess, then that's great. They will be there for you, and they are good. They are solid. They are a decent shoe. I will probably, going forward, mainly use them for either club races where I'm not going all out PB, but I want to get a decent time and I don't want to wreck my feet, or hard training sessions. I feel like I would use them at the same time as I might use something like a Speed 3 or a Puma Velocity Nitro, something like that, and maybe one of the nylon plate shoes rather than a carbon plate shoe, although this is a carbon plate shoe. So I think it is a good effort from Tracksmith. That sounds too mean. It is a good shoe, but I'm not going to reach for it for my PB day shoes. Because I would always wonder if I put this one on instead of, for example, an Asics Metaspeed Edge or a Hoka Cielo X1 2.0, I would always wonder, could I have got a few more seconds by wearing one of those? And that is the problem that they will come up again against as a pure racer. But as an excellent racer trainer, I think it's a really good shoe.
So my verdict on the Tracksmith Eliot Racer, I think that as a standalone shoe, carbon plate shoe, I think it probably sits a little bit below some of the top tier ones out there. I think that it is a more subtle ride, and I think that what you're getting from it is a pretty competent race shoe. But when you compare it with some of the other shoes out there, I just think it's lacking a little bit of the either energy that you get from the midsole foams or the propulsion from the carbon plate, and as a result, it's not as high performance as some of those shoes. that's not necessarily a bad thing. Some people don't really want those sort of aggressive feels. They don't necessarily want loads of bounce in their shoes. They want a more natural feeling shoe, which I think this is going for. And I think that's part of the design as well. Tracksmith of going for this sort of legacy style in the look of the shoe, but also I think in the feel of the shoe. So I think if you are a massive fan of Tracksmith, and I know many people are, if you were to buy this shoe and think, I love Tracksmith, I want to get the carbon plate race shoe they've got, you're not getting a bad carbon plate race shoe. You're getting a good carbon plate race shoe that looks like a Tracksmith design, which is probably what you want. But if you're looking for a specific thing from your race shoe, like if you want a really aggressive carbon plate ride, if you want loads of energy return, loads of bounce, if you want a soft midsole, anything like that, you're not getting it with this because it doesn't really excel in any of those areas. It's not noticeably performance. It's more like just a solid all-round, more sort of standard style. If this came out maybe 3-4 years ago, I think it would be a more conventional race shoe as opposed to a carbon plate race shoe against some of the shoes that are out there at the moment. But I do like it. I just think that there's a market for it. And for the price, you're going to have to be a big fan of Tracksmith because you're sort of losing a bit of the performance benefits that you would get if you went to other shoes. And you could also probably find a cheaper shoe, something like the Puma DV8 Nitro Elite 3, which is considerably cheaper than this shoe, but I think it is a better carbon plate race shoe for a significantly cheaper price. So yeah, it's a good shoe. I think if you love Tracksmith, you're not going to be disappointed. But equally, if you're looking for the fastest shoe out there that's going to really knock off seconds on your races, I don't think the Eliot Racer is going to do it.
So my verdict on the Tracksmith Eliot Racer, this is a good shoe, a shoe I enjoyed running in. I think you've got a pretty solid foam in here that delivers a fairly good level of responsiveness, but this is not a shoe that I'd be picking purely in terms of performance for my race day efforts. And when I'm looking at picking a carbon shoe, like the things that I look for most are performance, first of all, like I just want the fastest shoe to try and help me set a PB if I've trained a lot, and then look at price. Like I don't really want to spend, for example, £500 on the Adios Pro Evo 1, no matter how good that shoe is. I think that's always going to be a bit off-putting, but if the price is more or less in line with other shoes, then it's all about performance. And if you are looking mainly at price and performance, I don't think the Tracksmith Eliot Racer is the shoe you're going to go for. I just don't think it hits the levels of performance you're getting with something like the Puma Fast R3, the Asics Metaspeed series of racers, the Adios Pro 4, the Alpha Flight 3. They all just give you a little bit more, I think, when it comes to running your fastest races. But for some of those other things will come into play. Like I do think, like I said, in the run test, it's a pretty stable and supportive shoe for a carbon plate racer. It has that super trainer vibe in that you can use it quite a lot. And then obviously with Tracksmith, you might just be a really big fan of the brand and the design. And if you do love that and you want to pick up the shoe, you're going to get a really good shoe here. But I think, yeah, at a time when we're seeing some pretty innovative stuff, actually, I think, in the carbon shoe world, there was a period where it kind of all settled a little bit. Lots of brands caught up. I thought maybe we're going to have fairly similar shoes for a while. I do think we've seen some really interesting stuff coming out this year. And it's been really effectively impressive, fast stuff as well, like the Puma Fast R3, Asics' new shoes, Adios Pro Evo 2, and Hoka Cielo X1 2.0. Lots of brands are releasing their best ever super shoes, I'd say. And in that kind of arena, the Tracksmith Eliot Racer just isn't the one I'd go for on performance. So yeah, like I say, good solid shoe, certainly some appealing characteristics to it, but given its very high price and the performance level of the best super shoes, I'll be looking elsewhere myself for my Racer.
Birdie then, as much as I love the styling and that Tracksmith shoots for something a bit different, something with a bit of class, and this is undoubtedly the brand's best running shoe yet. It's a real step above the Eliot Runner that we saw before. I think it's a real struggle to recommend the shoe. It's not a bad shoe. It runs well. It's got okay comfort. There's a pleasing softness to it. There's sort of a fun energy to it. But for me, it's not got what I would be looking for an all-out racing shoe, an all-out carbon racer. And if you're treating it as a race day shoe, I don't think it compares well to the likes of the Asics Metaspeed Sky Paris or the Puma Fast R3, the Brooks Hyperion Elite 4 PB, the Adios Pro 4, all of those shoes. You could name loads and loads of them. If you take it as a super trainer, it's probably a bit more competitive. I'd happily log my daily training miles in the Racer. It's a bit like the New Balance SC Trainer, that kind of vibe. But that would make the Racer very expensive for what it offers. And that's really the biggest problem for me, is the price tag. It's really dissuasive. And I realise this isn't Tracksmith's modus operandi, but if you stick this sub 200, it becomes a much more interesting proposition. That's not going to happen. That's not what they do with their clothing. It's not what they're going to do with their shoes. But at the price, I just find this quite a hard shoe to recommend for the performance it gives.
That's it from us on this review of the Tracksmith Eliot Racer. Thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click that little bell. If you're going to catch me below, you can find it to our podcast, which comes out a couple of times each month. Thanks a lot for watching. Catch you next time.